following program on Other Derana 24 is classified MA. It is intended for adults and may be unsuitable for children under 17. It may contain crude, indecent language, explicit sexual activity, graphic violence, or political ideology. Viewer discretion is strictly advised. State of the Nation is an opinion-based program. The thoughts and opinions shared within this program are not intended to offend or disregard anyone's perspectives or beliefs. We aim to foster open dialogue, encourage critical thinking, and explore thought-provoking subjects. Recognizing the importance of diversity and inclusion, this program welcomes all viewpoints and cherishes the right to express them freely. This program also contains the opinions of the participants and does not reflect the views and beliefs of the Derana Media Network. The network believes in a safe space for all ideas to be expressed and on its duty to create such a platform for free speech. Viewer discretion is strictly advised.
Tonight, au revoir 2024. Boy, what a year that was. As Sri Lankans, we say goodbye to a year of many firsts. We look back at what got us here. Have we learned the lessons of 2024? And more importantly, have we managed to make the changes that will give us a better footing in the new year? The lessons, the changes, and more importantly, the new direction makes 2024 to be a year for the history books. Will the year that we are passing help us to be at the top, or would we be circling as a nation over and over again in the same spot? For insights, analysis, and opinions, joining me tonight is the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ali Sabry, and former Minister of Finance, Shehan Semasinghe. Good evening, I'm Mahieash Johnney, and this is the State of the Nation. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join me yet again on another episode of State of the Nation. Well, this episode is more or less of a reminiscing one where we try to see what this year taught us and how it can make us better in 2025. Lot to get through, so let's get started. Now, as we wrap up 2024, we find ourselves reflecting on an extraordinary year in Sri Lanka's journey. A year of profound change, politically, economically, and socially. A year that will be remembered for its many firsts. This year, we witnessed the rise of a political party that just months ago held a mere 3 seats in Parliament. Today, they proudly represent a remarkable shift, securing a 2/3 majority in the 10th Parliament. Despite it has been labelled as a sign of blind confidence in the current government. When you really analyse the data, it shows that it was more of a protest vote than a mere block vote. With this newfound power, there is potential for transformative policies that can address pressing issues from the economy to education, health, infrastructure, and also investment. The 2/3 majority allows the government to enact meaningful reforms that can uplift every corner of our society, just like they promised. Economically, 2024 has been about resilience. As we rebound from past challenges, the focus is now on sustainable growth, innovation, and job creation. The government must aim to empower local entrepreneurs and attract foreign investment, which are crucial for our economic recovery. Now, socially, Sri Lanka has embraced a new spirit of unity. Yes, we saw the same type of unity back in 2019 when former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa won, but then it evaporated when that government failed to address real needs of the people. Now, as we look ahead, it's vital for every citizen to play their part. Engaging in community service, holding our leaders accountable, and actively participating in governance are essential steps towards a better Sri Lanka. Accountability starts with us. By voicing our concerns, advocating for transparency, and demanding action, we ensure that our leaders remain answerable to the people. Now, in 2024, will also go down in history where reconciliation really did happen. Now, for many years, we were talking about committees, commissions, and whatnot to create reconciliation. But the real lesson is when the people chose not to listen to the divisive nature of certain disharmonious narration fueled by many racist parties, finally change did happen. Now, as we close the chapter on this memorable year, let us continue to embrace change, strive for progress, and work together for a brighter future. As I always say, Sri Lanka can and Sri Lanka must. We're going to take a short break, and after the break, former Finance Minister Shehan Semasinghe and also former Foreign Minister Ali Sabry both will be here to discuss about the past year, the lessons learned, what can we take into 2025, and their advice for the current administration. This is the State of the Nation. Back in a moment. Welcome back, everyone, to the State of the Nation. Well, we're trying to get into a conversation with regard to what happened in the year that we passed, lessons that we can learn and also apply it in 2025. Sri Lanka has been on a roller coaster when it comes to its economy. The people went to the polling booth and voted a new government, a government that has no experience whatsoever. About few months back, like I said earlier on, just 3 seats in Parliament, now has the most number of the 2/3 majority, the presidency, and basically all the power that the people can give to this government, they gave in this particular elections that followed. So we want to get into a conversation with individuals who actually managed to go through this entire process since 2022. They were very pivotal and very crucial in what they were doing during that time, because stabilizing the economy, ensuring that the entire world's view of Sri Lanka is being changed and not looked like a pariah state, but to make sure that Sri Lanka is a state that can make a quick turnaround despite the fact that we were going through so much of financial crisis. Former Finance Minister Shehan Semasinghe and also former Foreign Minister Ali Sabry, both of you all, thank you very much for being here. Good to see you, and also my best wishes for the new year that is about to come in a couple of days more. Not a good start for the current government. The current government promised a lot of things that, you know, on day one we are going to reduce this, reduce that, and these kinds of, you know, promises were made, gentlemen. But the first issue with regard to the qualification and then the Vice Chancellor being removed just because he made sure that, you know, no ragging happens in his particular university, and also with regard to importing salt, which was not something that we were talking about in previous years. Those kinds of things has dented this entire euphoria that people actually have been having. So let me start off with you, former Finance Minister. With regard to, you were very pivotal in terms of making sure that our economy stabilizes. So before I get into the whole you know, set of things like with regard to the economy, the integrity and part of all that, why do you think the people in the previous election, despite the fact that you all managed to make the quickest turnaround after a financial crisis that called this country a bankrupt nation, and you all managed to get the IMF plan sorted out, creditors deal sorted out, all this was done, yet people said no to you. What happened? What do you think? What was the reason for that? Why was the trust was so much eroded that they didn't want to give another chance?
Well, it's a good question.
Now you can speak freely.
In my opinion, this election, people had a hate vote kind of a reaction because they had to go through pain in 2022. And the policies what we implemented added further burden onto the existing burden. No, we couldn't take popular decisions. Of course, the IMF program was initiated by Minister Sabry. It was the toughest time at that time. I think he had protest in US when he went, but you can be happy that the country stabilized. So even though the present administration promised that they are going to deviate from the IMF and also deviate from the program and also renegotiate with the creditors, I don't see anything different to what we planned and what we implemented.
So let me ask this question. When you all were in power, during that 2 years, you all spoke with the IMF and came up with a program. You all spoke with the creditors and came up with a structured program. So you're telling me the current program that the president is talking about and the government is talking about, saying that we actually reached a deal with the creditors and that is done, all that is not, there's no change?
There is no change. We reached consensus with the creditors before elections. And only the bond exchange was remaining, which is an administrative process. From the time you reach agreement until the exchange takes place, it's about a 6 to 8 weeks administration process. So that the advisors and the authorities will have to do the administration process. So we concluded the debt restructuring and we struck the deal. But unfortunately, the present government, when they were in the opposition, thought that they can do a renegotiation.
Yeah. That was promised, actually.
Yeah, that was promised, and they thought that a better deal can be brought in. But I mean, these are international organizations, and the amount of if you see, it was never an easy task. I think we were having one of the most complex debt treatments which we had to agree. So it was never an easy process. It was much necessary. If we had not struck a deal within this shortest period, we would have stabilized, but going from there onwards wouldn't have been easy. So this entire program from 2022 was based on 3 pillars. The first one was to eliminate shortages, including fuel, food, electricity. Then to stabilize the economy, and then to go in for growth. When we took over, the economy was contracted by 7.8% of the GDP. So the 7.8% contraction is now converted to 5% growth.
After third quarter.
After 6 consecutive quarters of contraction, we managed to convert it to a plus. So now the economy is stabilized.
But the government is taking credit for that.
Of course, they are in power now. They are in power, they can take credit. So what will happen is now the economy is stabilized. We need a growth strategy. We cannot continue like this. It is stabilized. How are you going to go forward from here? So the rest of the program will have to be carried forward. It is not easy to take popular decisions as they promised on stage, but I can see they're trying to kind of go into these popular decisions, but it will not be easy. So I don't think any of us will hope that the country will collapse again. The country will not collapse as far as you follow the IMF program and also the good practices. It is not only the IMF program and the global good practices which every economy has to follow.
Former Foreign Minister, in terms of restructuring the image of Sri Lanka from a failed state to someone that it's not, and that there is potential for this island nation to grow into something much more bigger within the region. That task was completely on your shoulders, and during the time that you were the minister, we saw you going all around the world trying to tell them a lot of relations, getting it back. Where do you think we started to falter? Like, what was the biggest mistake? This is basically trying to understand where things started to go wrong. Because in 2019, if you look at the mandate given to then former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, is even higher than what was given this time around. In terms of popular vote, the numbers. So that also, y'all were coming in with so much of hope, so much of plans and things like that. But where do you think things started to go wrong in that department? Because after giving so much by the people, delivery was a problem. And why do you think, what was the lesson that you would have taken out of that?
There are several reasons, I think. First of all, thank you, Johnney, for having us. Basically, when we took over then, unfortunately, if you very carefully look at it, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa inherited a huge debt burden. He did not borrow. It was there for over a period of time, inbuilt in that. That's how free education was sustained. That's how all these people who are talking about nothing happened in 76 years got their degrees. Otherwise they could not have come here. So that debt burden was going up. And unfortunately, the COVID came and hit. And that eliminated almost tourism totally out of it. 4.5 billion revenue came into 200 million by 2021. And then, of course, COVID also hit us in terms of the foreign remittance which was coming in. Countries were locked in, and we also didn't help by having this forced cremation policy, which brought our revenue from about 7.2 billion to 2.47 billion. And then along with that, in 2022, the Ukrainian-Russian crisis skyrocketed the prices. So all in all, bad luck, bad policies and bad debt had an impact on the whole thing. But we could have handled it better in the hindsight. I thought we could have announced this debt restructuring at least 6 months ago. We should have gone to the IMF about 1 year ago. Now, you would have seen that from Justice Minister, how from nowhere I was asked to take over finance. It's not that out of nowhere, because I have been vehemently proposing that within the cabinet. I made submissions, I made presentation, I made comparisons and all those things. I think the way we are going is disastrous.
Because what I'm struggling to understand, if you both can weigh in on that, is that when COVID hit, all the countries were taking stock of what's going to happen financially, economically within the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line. I'm sure not one single country acts like, there's nothing, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but there is forecast that keeps happening. I'm sure it would have come to the table to say things are not good. We need to make an adjustment right now, and that we did not see happening. And why do you think was the bottleneck for that?
I think a little bit of arrogance, probably on the people who were running the economy at that point in time. I don't want to name them personally because I have nothing against them, basically. But sometimes what happens is, when you are a professional on the particular field, you think that you know everything. So that leave others out of it. No one is perfect. So you must be open for a suggestion. You can agree on them or reject them. But you must have the suggestion on the table. When people say that this is the experience of the West, you must look at that. This is the experience of the East, and try to come out with something which suits you. For example, at that time, it was laughing stuff that people were saying, including Honorable Vasantha Samarasinghe, that why don't you print money?
Yeah.
And we are not America, we are not United States, we are not dollars or even euro or pounds. Those are stock currencies. But the moment here you print it, inflation is inevitable, and we saw that. And then we hold on to the rupee. For 203 rupees, when outside market it was 260 rupees, nobody would want to send it across. So we have been vehemently asking them, why don't you change these things? And then we said, okay, if you don't want want to go to IMF, fine, come out with some sort of a alternative solution. Nothing. They were using that homegrown. What is homegrown in Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka is a small country. So I think combination of wrong policies, bad debt, and also bad timing, like bad luck in terms of what happened in the COVID and also the Ukrainian crisis. Combination came and hit us so hard, and we were not prepared, or otherwise we were a little arrogant also not to understand the gravity of the situation. So a lot of lessons to learn. So I hope that we will never go through that, and we will never have that kind of arrogance in our administration.
Do you agree, Minister, on that?
Yeah, I agree. And also, you have to learn lessons. So, we went through a crisis, and we all know what was the cost of the crisis. So we cannot go back to a crisis. So that is very important. Whether, okay, fine, our government has changed, a new government has come in. But still, that doesn't leave room for any government to get the country back to a crisis. So good policies, now if you see, we were criticized heavily on many fronts. But if you see, we brought in all the new legislations which were required to ensure that we don't go back to a 2022. For example, the public finance management legislation, bribery and corruption legislation, the Central Bank Act. Since this act was not in place, there was a lot of political interference. The freedom was not there the independence was not there for the central bank to take the right decision, timely decisions. So we brought in this act. All those legislations which were not in place in Sri Lanka to ensure sustainable economy during our period, during the most difficult time, we brought it to Parliament. The Parliament supported, but unfortunately people who opposed it are now following the good policies which are introduced by us.
So this sentence, never to the IMF, was like a label that your government, the previous Gotabaya Rajapaksa government, printed on I think, a big board right in front to say never, 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 never. But now we see that apparently everybody agrees the fact that, you should have gone 6 months prior and to make sure that. So how going forward, how do you, let me start with you, because you're coming from, your electorate is basically in the central side of Sri Lanka, which is predominantly Sinhalese Buddhist, and they don't want this concept of being, a hacky to a Western nation or concept or things like that. How do you manage that? Because communication was very vital, and we saw in that government, I think I personally had a conversation with you when you were here, saying that communication of what you all are doing inside was not coming out as per it should have been. Then people could have, thought about it, done their research and figured it out, and actually not be the person, or actually not be misled. So we see a little bit of that happening right now. But how do you manage that? If by any chance, if you were given another chance to redo that?
And now, if you see, communication is very important. I agree with you. If you see the communication strategy we adopted, did not penetrate to the bottom level of the country. And what we did during this 2 years period is highly technical.
Yes.
It's highly technical.
Yes.
And even certain translations, we were finding it very difficult to find a Sinhalese word, a Tamil word, to ensure that, there is clarity in communications, because this was highly technical. But if we had not gone through this, we can't talk about Sri Lanka today. So this difficult task was even made difficult in Parliament by the opposition at that time. When we had these crucial legislations coming into Parliament, they never supported. They opposed. They criticized. Now, if you see the debt restructuring, I'm happy the present administration is following the IMF program and announcing the debt restructuring. But you go back to the past and see when domestic debt optimization was introduced to Parliament, how we found it very difficult to get it passed in Parliament. People came and had protest outside the parliament when these acts brought into parliament. But we ensured our domestic debt optimization program, our entire debt restructuring process will not add burden to any individual in Sri Lanka.
To be honest, going with that same theory, even I was very critical about this IMF program, because one thing is we were not told what was going on by the government in power. Again, highly technical. A layman would not understand. How much ever you try to explain it to them, this will do this and that, and you actually have to go through that process. Former Foreign Minister, before we go in for a break, I want to get your take on what do you think in terms of foreign policy right now. Apparently, the former finance minister said that they are continuing, this government is continuing what you all have already done, not exactly deviating from it, and it looks like foreign policy wise also they're going to do a similar thing. So I don't know whether it is Ranil Wickremesinghe 2.0 government or you know, I don't know. We are yet to see that. But in your terms, what are the hot spots that could break the camel's back in terms of foreign policy right now if they take the wrong decision? Like you said, in the previous administration, the cremation issue was such a bad decision at that particular point. Like that, right now, what would be the
the important thing is, from our foreign policy wise, Sri Lanka always thrive on the independent foreign policy. We must continue to maintain that. Mrs. Bandaranaike's legacy is that, and we have been hailed for that. I mean, there is no reason for us to tilt from there. Whenever we have done this in the past, when Jayawardena tilted towards West, antagonized India, we learned a lesson for 26 years. When President Mahieash Rajapaksa tilted towards China, India did not like it, and we know the results in 2015. We put the country back for another, because Sri Lankan economy had not grown since 2015. The size of the Sri Lankan economy in 2015 and 2024 is the same. That means a lost decade. We have gone up, down, up, down. We have done all sorts of experiments. We have brought president after president, but country is suffering. Our economy should have grown by now. Per capita should be not 3,900, 4,100. It should have been 5,500 to 6,000. So we have lost a decade by experimenting and all those things. Therefore, God's sake, what we are asking is, for as far as the foreign policy is concerned, maintain independent foreign policy. But you must also understand, things we could not have done 2 years ago, they can do it better. Because they don't need to, like for example, in 2022, we had to deal with 17 countries to restructure our debt, get their debt optimization agreement. So therefore, we need to be very careful, because one party or one country could have destroyed the entire process, and that would have ended the country. But now we can say that you have passed that difficult threshold, you have a new mandate, you can sit and talk to them and explain to some of them, look, the nature of Sri Lankan politics, the nature of Sri Lankan culture, and the nature of the expectation of Sri Lankans are to be independent, and allow us to take that independent decision. Of course, you need to give that assurance that Sri Lanka will not be allowed to use its territory or territorial water to harm any other country, because we are a peaceful neighbor.
Do you think the visit to India by the president, the current president, Andrakumara Dissanayake, that was a correct move?
Yeah, I think that personally, the first, you should have gone to India. India is the biggest neighbor. You can't ignore that fact. You can't take on India. We have tried to do that in the past. It has never succeeded. So you have to work with India, but not isolating China and the other part of the world.
Yeah, the announcement is there that he's going to China as well. Also,
what I'm trying to talk to is, there are some areas you have to once and for all put your foot down and say that in firm, say sometimes big powers try to bully you and force you to take decisions. You have to say that that's not possible, because my people and my mandate will not allow it. So this is the time to assert that at the beginning. If you don't assert now, you are not going to assert ever. You can assert because you are in a much better position than what we were 2 years ago. You are much better position economically, you are not vulnerable as it used to be, and you have a fresh mandate with 2/3%. You say that this is what the people expect me, this is what we are going to do, so therefore don't ask us to do anything which is unfair or partial.
Let's take a short commercial break. I'm in conversation with former Finance Minister Shehan Semasinghe and also former Foreign Minister Ali Sabry. We are reminiscing 2024. What happened? Where did the country go? What were the achievement that was made, and how did the country's change would impact 2025? We're going to take a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Everyone to the State of the Nation, our final program for 2024. I'm in conversation with former Finance Minister Shehan Semasinghe and also former Foreign Minister Ali Sabry. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask this blunt question from both of you, because the Finance Minister, you worked very hard with regard to the IMF program. You were very much there. I'm pretty sure all the conversations have been really, hard when you were going all around the world trying to get this thing sorted out. Same thing for you. But apparently you all chose not to be in this next parliament, in the 10th parliament. What was the reason that you said no? Because even though the direction was not towards you winning, but your voice would have been very valuable in the parliament, especially when this particular IMF agreement is being implemented and the country has to go in this particular path at least for some time, because debt servicing is starting somewhere around in 2027, 28, and when that happens, with now they want to bring in vehicle importation in and open the economy, and if they do it haphazardly, we will be looking at another crisis for sure. So in a situation like that, what was the reason?
Well, I think when I made the decision, I had a message out. As everybody agree, we tried hard to rescue the country. We did our best to ensure that everybody who was facing crisis is out of it. Of course, I know every little concern was not answered, but the core was answered, and we had the solution for it. But people voted against it. There were multiple reasons. It's not only Anura Kumara Dissanayake as the contesting as the president, but there were multiple reasons for people to vote against it. But I must say, the last 2 years, we put the country back on track. Economically, if you take every aspect within this short period, we put the country back on track. But people thought...
Track towards where exactly?
Towards not facing another crisis, and also to ensure that the country grows. Economically, the country grows, and that benefit is passed on to every individual in this country. We brought in systems. We were a country without a single system. All our systems, which we practiced at that time, was not accepted by the rest of the world. So we put a country which did not have a system to a globally accepted system. But however, as I said earlier, people voted against it. So I think we should pave way for the present administration, as well as respect the mandate of every individual in this country. So the government has a mandate, so now it is up to the government to ensure that they deliver what was promised.
That's my next question. So if they deliver what they promised, which was to get out of the IMF agreement, which was to make sure that we have our own solutions, and last time I think in the first program of this month on State of the Nation, when I spoke to the Deputy Economic Minister, who said, I asked him, is this a continuation of Ranil Wickremesinghe 2.0? And his answer was, no, Ranil only had IMF, we have a lot of other stuff. other paths to get the country back on track. So my question to you is, if that happens, what they promised, well, we're looking at another crisis.
As of now, it is a continuation of Ranil Wickremesinghe policies. But it is for stabilization. The country was stabilized about 7-8 months back. So they have to get on to a growth strategy. That strategy, I don't see. The growth strategy...
Did you all have one?
Yes, of course. Now, if you see, okay, you look at the state-owned enterprises, the SOEs, which had a loss of about 700 billion, was converted to a profit. The 52 key institutions were turned to a profit. We converted a loss of 744 billion into a profit. But that divestment program, the government has decided not to continue. So now what is going to happen? Now we have restructured our debt, but if you look at Sri Lankan Airlines, there is a defaulted bond of approximately 175 million, a treasury guaranteed bond.
And now
so how is it going to get restructured? I'm sure the government will look at different strategies to restructure that. We were also doing it, but we wanted to conclude the entire debt restructuring process first. So, but while having this defaulted debt, bond, you suspend the divestment program. So how are you going to continue? Can the Treasury take a burden? If the Treasury decides to take a burden, that means every individual has to take a burden.
In this context, opening the economy and making sure vehicle importation, importing things that were put in on restriction, not exactly a good idea.
We can't have a closed economy. We must open our economy. Now, if you, even in this program, the program is designed in a such way, opening, I mean, we only have restrictions on vehicle importation. So even if you open the vehicle importation, that will not have a negative impact on the reserve position. And when Minister took over as a finance minister, we had only 20 million usable reserves back in 2020. But now everybody talks about a 6 billion plus reserve position. How did it happen? It was hard work of everybody, including the policy makers and the direction of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Now we announced how we are going to unlock vehicle restriction on vehicle importation.
Is that the same plan they had followed?
It's a delayed plan now. By October, to have the passenger vehicle, to have the public transport, vehicles on public transport. December, commercial vehicles, and the first quarter, private vehicles. Because that revenue is very important for us. The entire program is based on two pillars. One, we need to have a 15% revenue of the GDP, government revenue, in 2025. And also a primary surplus of 2.3%. by 2025. So as far as these two parameters are met, we don't head on to another crisis. But to go into this level, it's very important we manage our economy. Revenues are very important. And we have to somehow ensure that we start debt repayment in 2028.
The whole default aspect of things, but before that I also want to get your take as to why you did not contest this time around and actually get into parliament, because I think you all were in a good position in your particular areas. If you all actually contested to get back into the 10th parliament in a situation like that, the defaulting aspect of it and telling those nations, hey, sorry, things are not going well for us, and bringing them back. What was the plan when you all were there? Because investor confidence is key. Once the economy is slowly growing, we have to still go and do the whole marketing. of Sri Lanka back to the people, back to the nation, saying this is a viable option, and it will remain same rather than it will crumble in another 2, 3 or 5 years down the line. So what do you think of that right now?
I think that at that point in time, we had 3 stages to tackle this. Initially, as you said, that's the most important thing. You don't need to look at the country. Even if your family is starving, your family doesn't have enough to provide for them, you are not going to go and pay the loans outside. You need to first look after your house in order. So when the 13 hours of a power cut, they have no medicine, no fertilizer, no cooking gas, you are not going to pay the foreign debts. So that was the right thing to do. We announced that. As a result, we preserved the little bit of things what we had. We also gave the international community a very clear message. If you do not announce and default, that means you are not taking responsibility. You are irresponsible. You are not saying anything.
A lot of people, Foreign Minister, said Sri Lanka didn't have to default. And they were very criticizing of that particular fact, including me, even on this program, because they said Sri Lanka had enough money, but it was the wrong decision, because once we actually default, the whole look of Sri Lanka is no longer going to be the same. So you were the finance minister at that particular time, and you, I think the central bank governor and all of you all made the decision. Do you still think it was the right decision?
That was the right decision. The whole foundation of our recovery is because we defaulted at that point in time and announced default. If you do not announce, what happens is, this is not a big deal. It's like you are in a business. Your business is not doing well. You go to your bankers and say, for the next 1 year, we can't pay. Restructure your debt. So I'll pay thereafter. Sensible banker will say, rather than destroying your business, sensible banker will say, we'll agree with you. You know, as long as you are honestly following the process. So what is the honestly following the process? IMF process. So we told, look, we are not in a position to pay, and people did not understand at that point in time. These are technical issues, you know. I took over finance on the 4th. On the 12th, I was called by the finance, Mr. Dr. Nandalal, the current governor, and told me, we have a serious situation, Minister. I had to pay 178 million on the 16th of April. This is after the holiday period. And I had to pay another 233 million, one to Chinese bank, the other one for bondholders at the interest. But I just have 20 million US dollars. How do you pay? So we have just 2 choices. The 2 choices were either to go on that particular day and do nothing about it, and that called hard default. That means a responsible nation should never do that. So if you did not announce, that would have been the consequence, you know. So then we would have become a pariah state. You know, you are not taking responsibility. The moment you announce default is, what you are saying is, our intention is to pay. We want to pay, but we don't have the capacity to pay. But we will rebuild the capacity when we start pay. And the entire world accepted it. And the advantage of it is 17 billion saving on total the local debt optimization, the bondholders optimization, and also the bilateral optimization. 3 things. One is the haircut. That means instead of 28% haircut on the bondholders, and postponement, and also reduction of the coupon, that is the interest rate. The combination of this has given Sri Lanka an advantage of 17 billion US dollars. I'm very grateful at that point in time. I was under tremendous pressure. I'm in just 1 week into the job. I've been asked to default for the first time in the history. But of course, being a lawyer, I do a lot of research, I do a lot of reading, and I also don't think that I know everything. So I consulted so many people. I consulted Professor Chanta Devarajan. I consulted Dr. Kumarasamy. I consulted Shamini Kure. I consulted Professor Lee by the net. And then I consulted, of course, my friend and my colleague, Shehan, Semasinghe. And I also spoke to Harsha De Silva. He was the opposition finance speaker. I also spoke to Mr. Basil Rajapaksa. I thought that on the 11th, I would have slept for 2 hours. So much of research. And then we had heated argument, debates, pros, cons, and everything. I had several discussions with Dr. Nandalal as well as Mahinda Sirivardhana, and ultimately I was convinced within myself the right decision to do. I went to President Gotabaya, sat with him, I explained to him everything. He said, I also feel the right thing to do is this, and we did that. And if you look at today, that's the foundation of our recovery. That gave us the space for the last 2 years to stabilize our economy, eradicate all those queues, bring the foreigners to in, and develop the tourism. So I think we would have been voted out, but we can be very proud. We did the right thing by the country, not the popular thing. We did not look at our future.
Again, I'm coming back to the same thing. Why was none of this communicated to the people? Because you remember at that time, people were basically coming in front of the presidential secretariat asking for answers. The president was basically barricading himself with so much of military individuals when the people were building huts at Gulf Face. And this conversation between the leadership that was basically given power by these same people who were at the Gulf Face Green at that time. And for them to understand, listen, step by step, this is what we're going to do. Why wasn't it done? Because if that happened, I don't think this animosity towards certain parties or anything, these two politicians per se, that they are ruining this country, they're completely going to, and then opting to go with, at the time that we really want to be stable economically, politically, and then go with a government with more than 150 individuals, zero experience in terms of governing. Don't you think that was also very crucial at that moment?
Now, unfortunately, the situation was so bad, that's what I told, our reserves have come down, tourism had almost dried down, and remittance were not coming in, and prices were going up. People have forgotten that. What was $115 of fertilizer had gone to some $600. What was 138, the coal had gone to some 600. What was $48 to $45 of a barrel of the petrol had gone to some 105. So things happen in such a fast way. It was bad luck, bad timing, bad policies, combination, and it was too late. To be fair by the people, when you are, the electricity is cut for 13 hours, when you don't have the cooking gas at home, when my house had to buy firewood in Colombo 7, and what do you expect? People will get into street. I don't find fault with them, we should have done it better. But the thing is, the stability part, they should have also listened. In 2 years, no country in the world have made a comeback. Greece took 11 years to make a comeback. Being a first world country, being in EU funded them 95 billion euros, and it took 11 years and 6 governments. So elections, I think, history will judge as an unfair judgment on the whole hard work a lot of our colleagues put in. And I immediately after, in my case, I was very clear. I'm a very reluctant politician. I love my profession. I am enjoying it. So mine was just one term. Anyway, I was clear in my mind. I just came in to do justice ministry, and it led to one into finance, and that did led into this thing. I didn't want to run out when the country need me more, because I love this country so much. And when we were asked to take a responsibility, we took it, and we are very, very proud that we did that. Today this is a country for them to run. We have managed that country, preserved that country. So, but immediately after the election, I wrote a article in my X. I told 4 of my colleagues I would have loved to see them in Parliament: Shehan, Kanchana, Ramesh Patirana, and my state minister Tharaka. Fantastic politicians. Patriotic, they could articulate, they did a job, they were not just playing to the gallery, they took leadership in a very difficult situation and steered the country out of it. They are heroes, and they were politicians, and so they should have been in Parliament. I thought, leave me aside, because my passion is somewhere else, So therefore, sometime it happens, but I'm sure they have good future. And not immediately. I hope this government will do well. They won't reverse the things that we have done. Now that everybody is talking about Manmohan Singh, Indian economy, the foundation was laid by Dr. Manmohan Singh.
Yeah.
To the credit of everybody else who followed them, they, within the parameters, despite the different parties, they continued the same policies. And today, India is an economic powerhouse. In 2040, they are going to be the third biggest economy. And if everything goes according to prediction, by 2060, they will be the second biggest economy. So they are on course. So that is because consistent policies. So one day, history will judge and say, the people like Shehan, under President Vikramasinghe, and even before that, some of the most crucial decisions we took long before Mr. Vikramasinghe took over. That suspension, going to IMF, getting Lassad and others to come in, cost reflective pricing. It all took during my 6 weeks time. All the foundational work we did it. So since then, Mr. Vikramasinghe gave excellent leadership. He knew that he had a choice of going for populist decisions or right decisions. And I'm glad that he did the right decision. The country is bigger than all of us. We can come, we can go, but country cannot go back again.
Growth, when handing over the country, I think in that government also you were a minister. The second Rajapaksa government. And at that time, when you all were handing over the country to the new Democratic Front government under President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, growth was somewhere around in 5%. End of 2019 brought down to 3% or so.
2.1%.
2.1%. And then again, those policies that was continued, especially with regard to the port city decision, all that popular decisions that were made eroded the country's economy, brought us back into a very unstable position for the COVID crisis when it hit. Actually, if we had those plans continuing, we would have faced COVID crisis very successfully and not been in this position where we are right now. You all are handing over a country where you all again has stabilized it. What could go wrong, and what is your advice to the current administration after going through the hard work and handing it over, and to make sure that we are not going to have a repeat of what happened in 2022?
Economically, as far as the right policies are continued, what we introduced, the country can't go back. But it will remain stabilized. But it will not remain stabilized for years and years. So you need to have a growth strategy. One, you should not even think of any of the reversals of good policies. None of these policies should be reversed. Shouldn't even speak about it. And secondly, since this came up, I saw on papers that the NPP MPs have said they have got a empty treasury. You can't tell that anymore. It was never an empty treasury. All the required parameters were met. Basically overperformed. It is not only met, it is overperformed.
Yeah, primary account balance, surplus. Yeah.
It was a surplus.
For last 4 quarters, right?
So we haven't handed over an empty treasury. Basically, we have handed over a stabilized country. So go in for growth. You need to grow exports. You need to liberalize trade. You need to get the private sector support more and more. The government sector should be out of business. They should not be running into business, because in Sri Lanka, if you see every sector, government has a significant presence. Those should be handled by the private sector. Get the private sector to move as fast as possible. Give them that confidence. Now see, we were in a defaulted rating position. Now the rating positions are coming up. So that itself will have confidence in the economy. That is what we wanted, as fast as possible. So we can be proud, as the minister said. I mean, we did the right thing, the right we put the country back on the right path. And it is up to the present administration to take this forward. I don't see a deviation also from what we introduced. Of course, here and
Which
there.
is a good thing.
It is good.
It is a good thing.
It is good. So that is what we also wanted. In fact, when the elections took place, my only wish was that they will continue with the IMF. But once the economy grows, the revenues grow, you can make adjustments. You can't make hasty adjustments. I mean, if you IMF, yes, they have the parameters, they have the numbers. You can change numbers, but then you have to show them from where we get this lost revenue. And if you take Aswasuma, I mean, the JVP and the NPP was very critical on Aswasuma. It's good to see, they have taken they have shown more importance on Aswasuma. But the question, I have a question there. If I remember the figure right, it's about 205 billion to be spent on poor and vulnerable. But we have to do this scientific research. Instead of continuing with the research, it seems like you're increasing the allowances to the existing selected Aswasuma beneficiaries to ensure that you spend this 205 billion. So there it is not the right decision. So do the research right. You have a 2/3 majority. Your own unions opposed the previous government to slow down this Aswasuma research. So do this research again. Ensure the poor and the vulnerable are looked after. The predictions of the IMF, the World Bank, in terms of growth was between 2 to 2.5%.
And it's happening.
We have already gone to 5% with the third quarter numbers. So it's promising. It's just to ensure that these good policies are carried out.
Thank you, Minister. Very quickly, former Foreign Minister, Trump presidency. Okay, how is that going to be any impact? The reason I'm asking this is because this current government, the current president, is being labeled in the West as a Marxist president, a Marxist government. Not exactly the favorite word of Donald J. Trump. Supporting him. I mean, he's not interested in looking at the data as long as you hear those names and those buzzwords. Not a favorable thing. Handling America, what would be your advice?
No, I think be open, transparent, and continue to engage. That's the most important thing. America is a very important market for us. That's the biggest export market for us. So all these big players are very, very important. Donald Trump is very unpredictable, so you have to take your guard and always have to be closely monitor. Have probably a different department looking at very carefully as to how handle day to day. I'm very glad that they have kept the ambassador Semasinghe done a fantastic job during the last couple of years. That's a very wise decision because he have made a lot of inroads into American systems there in terms of making our policies known. Yeah. So I only hope good for the country because all of us have done so much, sacrificed everything, is to see the country progress, and that's what we want.
Indeed. Former Foreign Minister Ali Sabry and also former Finance Minister Shehan Semasinghe, all the very best for the new year, 2025, and make sure that, I know you're going back to enjoying your profession and having a good time, and I hope that we will continue to hear from you with regard to how the country's economy is growing. Gentlemen, thank you very much and Happy New Year.
Thank you very much and Happy New Year too.
Well, that's all the time we have for you tonight. Thank you very much for joining. That wraps up 2024. A lot of lessons, a lot of things to reminisce about, a lot of things to ponder about, and the bad things, let's leave it in 2024 and take only the good things into 2025. Wishing you nothing but the best of love, care and understanding in 2025 for you and for your family. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.
Take me to your love shack. Mama's always got a backtrack when everybody talks bad. Never thought I'd live to see the day say. It started with the